All right, so I want to talk a little bit about geometry. When I was first teaching, I wasn't the best teacher. I'll be honest. I tried really hard and I did some really good things, but not maybe as many good things as I did later in my career. And so when I taught perimeter and area, yeah, I was pretty traditional. I just kind of told them they had to memorize the formulas, and we practiced a lot in class. And, you know, I had them memorize the formulas. I probably gave them ways of thinking about it to help them memorize them. And then I gave the exam, and they did horrible. So it was just awful. And as a teacher, I felt like a failure. Yeah, they didn't get it. And so Year 2 came out, and with the NCTM standards, a lot of people are like, you know, memorization doesn't matter. And so I'm like, okay, fine. Well, I basically did Year 1 all over again. But they didn't have to memorize formulas. I was going to give them a formula sheet, and it would say triangle, the formula's area, half base times height. So basically I just did Year 1, but removed the memorization of the formulas. And so I did that. And they actually did worse than what they did in Year 1. So giving them the formulas was not helpful. They actually did worse. So Year 3, by this time, I kind of had discipline down. I was a little bit out of survival mode. And so I'm like, okay, they don't have the conceptual knowledge. And so I'm like, they have to discover these formulas themselves to actually get them. Like I can give them a formula that someone else made up or developed, but if they don't develop that knowledge themselves, it's meaningless. And this was in 1992. So I'm like, okay, we got to discover all these formulas. And so what I did is I created some ways, and we'll do some of these in class, where my students discovered the formulas for shapes. And they realized there's really only 3 things you have to know, maybe 4 if you consider circumference different than perimeter, which I suppose you probably do. So 4 or 5 things. And if you know those, you can really find the perimeter and area of any single shape. So for example, if you know the area, how to find the area of a triangle with a formula or without, just if you understand the math of that, and maybe you know the area of a circle, how to figure that out, and maybe a rectangle. If you have some weird looking shape that has some parts or kind of a group of those together, you can cut it into those shapes and figure out the area of pretty much everything, instead of just this shape has this formula, this shape has that formula. And so my students discovered all these formulas, which again, 4 or 5, depending on how you're counting. And suddenly, and I didn't give them a formula sheet, so they either had to memorize or have a good enough conceptual understanding to figure it out. And yeah, they did wonderful. They did amazing. And not just were their test scores better, but they actually understood the concept of perimeter, the concept of area. And instead of just being able to do a handful of shapes, they could actually find the area and perimeter of any shape, even if it had a semicircle as part of it, or a trapezoid, or an octagon as part of it. They could actually figure out the area of way more and the perimeter of way more things than they could have even had I given them the formulas. So that's kind of the story of where I came as a teacher. And yeah, we're going to go through those together as a class, but I'm going to give you an outline now, and then in class we will go ahead and kind of fill this outline out together as we discover these formulas together. I just want you to see I have a little helper up there that's helping me teach. Daphne, can you say hi? She's getting blocked a little bit there, but she's my teaching assistant. All right, so I'm going to pause it here and get this organized, and then we'll chat. Okay, so what I want you to be prepared for when we get together for class is just to realize if we can categorize it into these 3 categories, we pretty much can do anything that exists. Okay, now I'm sure there's exceptions to the rule, but for the most part, most shapes that people want to find the area or perimeter of or circumference, these categories are going to do it for us. So, all right, have this ready, and we will work on this in class to figure out, how we can teach our students and how they can understand these concepts in a meaningful way.